Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The night was cool, an unusual treat for a busy city like ours, enveloped in a constant hum of traffic and lives moving too fast. I had texted Claire earlier, telling her I'd be out with a new colleague from the firm, catching a few drinks downtown. She had replied with a heart emoji and a quick note about meeting her girlfriends for dinner. The usual Thursday script, played out without missing a beat. The bar was a dimly lit spot on the corner of 7th and Elm, the kind that tried a bit too hard to be rustic. I was early, nursing a scotch on the rocks and watching the door every time it swung open, expecting Jason, my new acquaintance. We'd clicked over shared disdain for office politics and a love for vintage motorcycles. He had promised to bring along his girlfriend, making it sound like a casual double date. When the door opened this time, it was Jason. He spotted me and waved, a wide grin spreading across his face. I stood up, clapping him on the back as he reached my table. "Mike, man, great to see you. This is Anna," he gestured to the figure behind him. But it wasn't just any woman who stepped out from behind Jason, it was Claire. My Claire. There she was, not just accompanying him but perched playfully on his lap, her lips grazing his neck in a tender, familiar way that sucked the air from my lungs. "Anna?" I managed, my voice a cocktail of disbelief and forced calm. Claire's eyes widened in shock, her body stiffening as she recognized me. The color drained from her face, replaced by a ghostly pallor. "Mike?" Her voice was a whisper, a guilty, strangled sound that barely reached my ears. She scrambled off Jason's lap as if burned by the contact. Jason, still oblivious to the unfolding drama, chuckled. "You guys know each other?" "Know each other?" I repeated, my voice rising despite my attempt to control it. The bar seemed to shrink, the background noise fading into a muted buzz. "She's my wife, Jason." The words hung heavy between us. Jason's face fell, his smile slipping into a confused frown as he looked from Claire to me and back again. "Your wife? Anna, you said your name was..." "It's Claire," I interjected, my gaze fixed on her, searching for any trace of the woman I thought I knew. The silence that followed was deafening. Claire's shoulders slumped, her eyes darting around, seeking an escape she couldn't find. She opened her mouth, then closed it, words failing her just when they mattered most. "I think I need to go," she muttered, grabbing her purse and nearly stumbling in her haste to get away. Jason stood up, his hands raised in bewilderment. "Man, I had no idea." I waved him off, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and heartache. "Not your fault. You didn't know." As Claire's retreating figure merged with the shadows outside, a cold resolve settled over me. Betrayal, the kind that cuts deep and festers, had taken root. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain, the life I had known with Claire was over. Tonight was the end of our story together, and the beginning of something else, something dark but necessary. I turned back to the bar, signaling the bartender for another drink. The scotch burned down my throat, a fitting companion to the turmoil within. It was time to plan my next move, time to think about how to protect myself from further deceit. And as I sat there, the pieces of a new, colder strategy began to fall into place. The next morning brings with it a gray, overcast sky, mirroring the turmoil in my heart. I hadn't slept much, the image of Claire and Jason etched painfully into my mind. Each time I closed my eyes, there it was, replaying like a cruel loop. I knew I couldn't let this slide. Not this time. My phone buzzes incessantly on the kitchen counter, Claire's name flashing across the screen. I stare at it, the ringtone a piercing reminder of the day ahead. I swipe to ignore the call, my resolve stealing with every pulse of silence. Instead, I dial another number, one I hadn't thought I'd need under these circumstances. "Hey, Dan, it's Mike. We need to talk. It's urgent." Dan, an old friend from law school, now a private investigator, is quick to pick up. Mike? What's going on? You sound off. Can we meet? It's about Claire. I found out she's cheating on me. There's a pause, a moment of discomfort. Yeah, of course. Meet me at the grind, in 30. Thanks, Dan. See you there. The coffee shop is quiet when I arrive, a stark contrast to the chaos in my thoughts. Dan is already there, a cup of coffee in front of him, looking concerned. I sit down, cutting straight to the chase. I need to know everything, Dan. Who she's been with, how long it's been going on. I want details. Dan nods, his professional mask sliding into place. I can do that. But are you sure you want to go down this road? It could get ugly. I'm past caring about ugly. I just need the truth. We spend the next hour mapping out a plan. Dan will start surveillance on Claire immediately, tap into her communications, track her movements. As distasteful as it feels, it's necessary. Knowledge is power, and I am all out of trust. As we wrap up, my phone vibrates again. This time, it's a text from Jason, "We need to talk. I didn't know she was your wife. Can we meet?" I show the message to Dan, who raises an eyebrow. You going to meet him? Yes, I reply, a plan forming in my mind. But not alone. I want you there, but out of sight. It could be useful. Got it. Just say when and where. I text Jason back, setting the time and place for this evening. Something about confronting him head-on, with Dan in the wings, makes me feel like I'm finally taking control of the situation. The day drags on, each tick of the clock a reminder of the impending confrontation. As evening approaches, I find myself at a secluded part of the park, the agreed meeting spot. The autumn leaves rustle underfoot, a cold breeze tugging at my coat. Jason arrives, looking uneasy. Mike, I really didn't know, he starts, his voice earnest. I swear, if I'd known. Save it, Jason. I'm not here to make you feel better about yourself. What I want to know is everything you know about her. Who is she really seeing? Who else does she know? What's going on? Jason looks at me, confusion turning to realization. You think there's more to it? I nod, my jaw set. I know there is. So, start talking. As Jason spills everything he knows, which isn't much, Dan texts me from his position nearby, got some leads. We'll discuss later. By the time I leave Jason, the last of the day's light has faded, casting long shadows across the park. I feel a grim satisfaction mixed with an unyielding resolve. The storm is just beginning, and I am ready to face whatever comes next. The night after my confrontation with Jason is restless. The pieces of Claire's deception litter my thoughts, jagged and sharp. I lay in bed, the glow of the city casting a dim light through the window, and wait for morning, when I can act on the information Dan and I have gathered. The sun is barely up when my phone buzzes. It's Dan. Got something. You need to see this. Text me the address. I'm on my way. The address leads me to a quaint coffee shop on the outskirts of the city, far from the usual buzz and noise. Dan is there, his laptop open, showing surveillance photos. The images flicker on the screen, Claire meeting with another man, not Jason, someone unfamiliar. Who is he? My voice is a low growl, barely containing the anger. Dan scrolls through his notes. Name's Eric. Owns a couple of bars in the city, including the one where you caught her with Jason. Seems he's more than just a casual acquaintance. I study the photos, each pixel of betrayal embedding itself deeper into my heart. We need to know what they're planning. Dan nods. I'm on it. I've got a bug ready to go for Claire's car, and I'm tracking her phone. We'll get everything. Good. Keep me updated. I leave the shop with a clear mission. I need to see Claire, face her, maybe even confront her with the evidence. But first, I need to gather my thoughts, prepare for what might be a devastating confrontation. I drive aimlessly, the city passing by in a blur until I find myself outside the law firm where Claire works. I park across the street, watching the entrance. It doesn't take long before she appears, looking around nervously before hurrying to her car. I follow at a safe distance. Claire drives to the park, the same one where I met Jason. She's alone, her movements hurried and anxious as she checks her phone. I park and approach quietly, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and anger. Claire. My voice cuts through the quiet park, making her jump. Mike. What are you doing here? Her voice is shaky, her eyes darting around as if looking for an escape route. We need to talk. I step closer, my presence blocking her way. She sighs, a resigned look washing over her face. I suppose we do. Why, Claire? Why him? Why any of this? I gesture to the empty park, encompassing the deceit. It's not what you think, Mike. There's more to it. It's complicated. Her eyes plead with me to understand, to accept a truth not yet spoken. I saw the photos. You and Eric. Don't tell me it's complicated. You've been lying to me, Claire. She bites her lip, a tear escaping down her cheek. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It started out as just networking. For my career. He had connections, could help me. And sleeping with him was part of the networking? My voice is bitter, laced with sarcasm. It wasn't supposed to be like that. I don't know how it got so out of control. Her defense seems weak, even to her. I need the truth, Claire. All of it. Now. I stand firm, the last vestiges of my patience wearing thin. Claire takes a deep breath, her composure crumbling. All right. I'll tell you everything. As she starts to speak, my phone vibrates in my pocket. A message from Dan, new info. It's bigger than we thought. Call ASAP. The revelation hangs in the air, heavy and suffocating. I glance at the phone, then back at Claire. This conversation isn't over, but already, the landscape is shifting, revealing a deeper, darker game than I had ever imagined. The park is silent except for the rustle of leaves, a stark contrast to the storm brewing between Claire and me. Her confession hangs heavy in the air, but before she can continue, I excuse myself to answer Dan's urgent call. Mike, listen. This goes deeper than personal cheating. It's not just about affairs. Eric's involved in some shady business, money laundering, and it looks like he was using Claire's access at the firm to launder money through client accounts. I pause, the pieces clicking into place, a mosaic of betrayal and crime. Are you telling me Claire knew about this? I don't think she did at first, but she got suspicious. That's why she was meeting him, to confront him. This new angle shifts everything. I end the call and turn back to Claire, who's been watching me anxiously. Claire, Dan just told me about Eric's schemes. Were you trying to stop it? Claire nods, tears in her eyes. Yes, I realized something was wrong weeks ago. I didn't know how to tell you. I feared you'd think that you were involved. I finish for her, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Yes, she whispers. I wanted to gather enough evidence to bring to the police. The silence that follows is filled with a painful understanding. I need to see that evidence, Claire. Without a word, she hands me her phone, showing emails and messages between her and Eric, detailing his plan and her attempts to gather proof without alerting him. I'm going to the police with this, I declare, the decision firm. And you should come clean to them about everything. Claire nods, wiping her eyes. I will. I want to make things right, at least legally. The drive to the police station is tense, each of us lost in our thoughts. We provide the officers with all the evidence Claire gathered, explaining the situation. They take her into a separate room to give a statement. I wait, the hours stretching on, until a detective finally comes out. We're going to need to investigate further, but it looks like Ms. Benson was indeed trying to expose the laundering, not participate in it. The news is a cold comfort. As I wait for Claire to finish with the police, I reflect on everything that's happened. When she emerges, her face is pale but determined. Mike, I'm sorry for everything. I never wanted to hurt you, she says, her voice trembling. I know, I reply, the anger subsiding into a tired sadness. But it's over, Claire. Between us, I mean. I can't move past this. She nods, a tear slipping down her cheek. I understand. I'll resign from the firm, move back with my sister, and try to rebuild. Maybe not my marriage, but my life, at least. We part ways outside the police station, the evening air crisp and unwelcoming. As I watch her walk away, a chapter closes on a painful, complex part of my life. Betrayal, even misunderstood, has a way of scarring your soul, leaving behind a landscape altered forever. Walking back to my car, the city lights blur into the night. I know the road ahead will be lonely, but perhaps, in that solitude, I'll find a way to trust again. As for Claire, I hope she finds redemption on her path, but it will be far from me, in a life completely separate from the one we once planned together.